Okay, looks like everyone's here. This is the Pension Investment Advisory Services Selection Committee, and we are here today to hear presentations from some of those companies that submitted. First would be Wells Fargo and Solyndria. Will you provide instruction as to how this is going to go exactly?
Sure. So just to start off, we do have 3 emergency exits on this floor, 2 on the opposite sides of the elevators, and there's one in the far right-hand side of this on this floor. We also like to start each meeting out with our safety message. The month of June safety message is the importance of electrical safety is shocking. And so, again, as Greg mentioned, we're here for the presentations. Today we have Wells Fargo presenting first. And per the invitation, we had 5 minutes for setup. There will be 30 minutes for the general presentations and a 10-minute question and answer period. So the presentations, you all will be evaluated on methodology and approach, your innovative solutions presented within the proposal, the approach to plan, pricing, and quality assurance and quality control.
And for the committee members, each of you have a folder with your scoring sheets, as well as some notes that we'll have to turn in after these presentations are complete, and a list of proposed questions, and finally the scope of work and the selection matrix that you should use as your guide as you're evaluating the presentation. Anyone have anything else to add? We're ready to proceed.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started with the timer.
All right, thank you guys so much for inviting Wells Fargo to present today. First, I would like to introduce who I have with me on our side of the panel. Furthest away is John Blees. He's the managing director with Wells Fargo Advisors, and he is part of our local consulting team. In the middle is Joe Bruno. He is our complex manager and also part of our local consulting team. And last is Jeff Rakes. He flew in from Roanoke, Virginia, and he is with our institutional consulting group. My name is Jennifer Harvey, and I'm also part of the local team.
We're going to stop right here, I'm sorry. We forgot to do introductions, so we're going to go around
Okay.
and introduce the committee and the folks in the room.
Okay, no problem.
And we stop the timer, we'll reset at 30 minutes as soon as we get done.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go around and Kelly, you start.
Kelly O'Leary.
Lisa Darnall,
Greg Hayes.
Lara Allen. Dwayne Wilson.
Chantel Daniels,
Samantha Bennett.
Jelani Hutz with Capital Benefit Consultants.
And Sharon Rush.
these are your evaluation committee and also under procurement.
And J.P. Glass.
Thank you.
Beneficial to have that. I like that. I was worried. So now that you've met our team and we've gotten to meet yours, we'll go ahead and start. The first section on page 2 of the presentation is methodology and approach. And what we decided we wanted to do here is make sure that we outlined what we saw from the request for proposal as the 3 primary goals that the plan had in this request for proposal. And we can find those on page 3. The first is the investment manager selection. And what we're going to look at today is how our global manager research team and the recommendations they provide to us can help in selecting the investment managers. And we're also going to look at what the pension committee's evaluation and approval and what role that they can have in this investment manager selection. Second, we're going to look at our ability as a local team to educate the pension board on these managers and on other topics, just in general, the ability of our team to educate. And lastly, we're going to talk about reliable, consistent communication, both through monthly and quarterly reporting, as well as goal-specific, customizable reporting. So first off, we're going to start on slide 4. Sorry, my presentation didn't work. My USB was locked. But on slide 4 with the investment manager selection process. We feel it is very important for us to start back at step 1 in defining the plan's goals, determining what it is that you're looking for on returns from your managers, as well as what risk you're willing to take, and defining not only those goals of the plan, but also what other goals the plan has, maybe in educating its union members or educating the board itself on this investment management selection process. So that would be the first step in this process. The next step would be to develop investment strategies. And what we mean by develop investment strategies is if you're looking for a specific return, what components are going to go into your asset allocation? So what pieces of the pie are going to come together in order for you all to meet those goals on the return side while remaining conservative and making sure you're staying within your risk tolerance. Next, we would go through the process of hiring managers, which can be a lengthy process. We're going to look at that a little bit next. But this is not where it stops for the team or for yourselves. It is a circular process because we will also continue to monitor those managers, ensure that they're meeting the goals, and then the team would make recommendations, or if your goals of the plan change, we might make recommendations to reevaluate managers or change managers through time. So I want to, on the next slide, look at our global manager research team. That is what Wells Fargo calls its group of 35 individuals. They work for Wells Fargo Investment Institute, which is in St. Louis and Charlotte, North Carolina. They consist of investment consultants. There are equity strategists, fixed income strategists, even a few engineers in the group, compliance and risk managers that compose this team. They have 5 offices across the United States, offices in London and offices in Hong Kong. What it allows this management team to do is have boots on the ground in the areas where they're evaluating these managers to make sure they're getting the information they need to us in order for us to make selections on the best managers for your plan. Next slide, slide 6, we're going to look at the research process that GMR, or the Global Manager Research Team, uses. They start off with the investment universe, and like doctors, there are many, many investment managers that we have to offer to you all or for you to choose from. Wells Fargo uses 3 primary sources to find their investment managers. They use internal contacts, third-party resources, and advisors like myself who bring recommendations to them from boards like yourself. So we have the ability to make recommendations to GMR to review managers. They put the managers through an initial screening. They look at the philosophy that the manager uses, the process that they use for selecting their investments. They look at the organization of the manager. They also look at the tenure of the manager. If the manager passes these initial criteria to go into the next step, they go into what Wells Fargo calls is the Manager Research Evaluation Framework. This framework is what provides the information that you and I and our team would use to evaluate managers and determine which managers were the best fit for your plan. They look at the risk optics as well, making sure that the managers aren't taking undue risk. They put them through a vetting process, and then they come out with a master list. Really, when they're looking at the evaluation framework, what they're doing is they're looking at the art of the managers, but also looking at the science of the managers. And the scale of Wells Fargo allows, because we're such a large company with 15,000 advisors across the United States, it really does allow us to have a large scale in selecting these managers and have the ability to bring in a lot of resources for you all as well. If we flip to slide 7, we're going to look at the art of the manager selection process. And because of time, I'm not going to go into great detail on this. This is something that we would sit down and look in more detail in the future. But I did want you to see part of this, what went into this process. The managers conduct face-to-face interviews. They do on-site visits. They talk to the management team, the trading team, the compliance team. And what they're looking from each team is to see what type of people they have employed with them, what the organization looks like, investment process, investment philosophy, the personnel, the performance of the team. So these are things that the numbers can't necessarily tell us. This is the heart and soul of these management teams and the management staff. After they review that, we'll move to slide 8, they're going to look at the numbers behind each of these managers. This is where they look at rolling returns. So what does the performance look like on the 1, 3, 5-year return? How do these returns compare to other managers? What their goal is they want to understand how the returns were achieved. What risk did the manager take in order to achieve the returns, making sure they're not taking any undue risk to achieve the returns? And did the manager adhere to their investment style? So if they were to invest in large cap growth, did they adhere to that investment style? After obtaining the information from the art and from the science, GMR, Global Management Research, will produce a variety of reports. And on page 9 is just a sample of one of those reports. And I know it might look a little foreign to you all, but what this will do is give us different analytical tools in order for us to help compare and manage, or compare one manager against another manager. The entire report that they generate is shown on page 10. It's called an investment thesis report. In this report, the managers are going to give us their reason, the global manager research team is going to give us their reasoning behind selecting each manager. So not just the numbers, but they're going to give us the story, what made them have a conviction for adding these managers to our recommended or our supported list. They're going to include performance expectations, portfolio return analytics, so all of the reports that they got from the art and from the science is going to be enclosed into one report. What this does is it allows my team and I to find the best managers in each of these different areas to bring them to you all, the board, to vote upon, which takes me to slide 10. The previous 10 slides slide 11, I apologize. The previous 10 slides may have seemed a little bit overwhelming. It's stuff that my team and I deal with every day, but you all may not, and may not be as familiar with. That's why we feel it will be very, very important and can be a cost-saving measure for the plan if you all take fiduciary responsibility in helping select these managers. And in order to do that, my team and I understand that we are going to have to help educate you on what goes into selecting managers to ensure that you're going to select managers that benefit the plan and help the plan reach its goal. We do also understand that one of the primary goals of the plan is not only to you all, but to also pass that education down to the plan members. So the union members who are beneficial to this plan, to make sure that they understand basics of financial planning, general financial planning tools, and our team, partnered with our home office and other supporting money managers, would have the ability to educate them on a variety of subjects. We would look at doing seminars, one-on-one meetings if necessary, to help educate both you, the pension board, as well as union members. And to switch to slide 12. Doing on time. Okay. The last area that we felt was one of the key topics under the methodology was consistent, reliable communications. Not only is it important for us to do a good job, but we need to make sure that we are transparent in showing you what we have done and what the managers have done. You will get monthly statements as well as quarterly reports that we would present in person, and a quarterly fee statement. And monthly analytical reports as requested. Wells Fargo has the ability to produce a variety of reports. Our goal would be is to understand during the goal finding what exactly it is that you all want to see and ensure that we're getting those to you all in a timely manner. And we do have, in addition to the gentleman with me today, we have 2 other assistants in the office that can answer questions and produce and generate those reports for us. All right. On to the next section of the presentation, innovative solutions. Once again, we felt in order for us to share with you what we felt would be some solutions to the scope of work, we thought it would be important to define what we saw are the 5 areas in the scope of work. Some of these we have reviewed briefly already, but we'll touch on those again. We see the 5 areas as a goals review, advisory services, investment policy review, reporting, and education. Under goals review, we would be reviewing your investment policy statement to make sure the goals stated there are the true goals of the plan, and we would help make any recommendations necessary. We would also set up goals for other policy documents that might be necessary, communication strategies or funding strategies. Under advisory services, that encompasses the money management services, and selecting the money manager as we discussed, account maintenance and operational support, as well as helping execute trades and obtain best execution. The investment policy review, we would update the investment policy as necessary, but we would also ensure that the managers are staying in line with what the investment policy states to make sure that you all are meeting your fiduciary guidelines as fiduciaries on the plan. We feel that it's also important for your reporting to be complete and be giving you the information as trustees that you're looking for. And lastly, education to advise the pension board what's available to you all and your participants, and what online tools we have to do that. So, next slide is the plan of action. And I got this plan of action. This is the same plan of action that we've included in our RFP, our answer to our RFP. And for sake of time, I'm not going to go through the purpose of each of the different areas. But what this plan of action does is it sets a course to ensure that the scope of work will be completed. And by refreshing key documents, reviewing the process to monitor the plan and select managers, review the resources available to you all through Wells Fargo advisors, to set up the pension clinics for the union members, to set up quarterly meetings for the board, and any monthly meetings or monthly phone calls that are necessary. If we take a look at slide 16, it overviews the different areas that we will be covering if awarded this contracts. In the middle, the largest and what we feel was one of the most important is the professional money manager services. As your financial consultant, that would be one of our primary roles. We would also be helping though with asset allocation review, investment review. Our Wells Fargo Investment Institute would provide research reports and guidance. We would be providing performance reporting and analytical services, scheduled meetings and updates, and account maintenance and operational services. So this is the plan. And in the next slide, the approach to plan, that's how we're going to achieve the plan. So if you can flip with me to slide 18, the service transition and implementation. Since we are currently the custodian of the assets, there would not be any service transition needed in the beginning. So right from the start, after being awarded the contract, we could start working on refreshing those key documents. Once again, the investment policy statement and any additional documents. And this would be meetings between JTA Pension Board as well as our local consultant team. After getting the key documents refreshed and making sure we understand your goals, within the first 30 days, we would look to review the process for selecting managers. We would educate you on how to select managers, determine your asset allocation, and then go through the process of reviewing and selecting managers. Once again, that would be the pension board and our local consulting team, with help from our investment consultants and Wells Fargo Investment Institute. And third, we would review all the resources available to you all, providing information on educational materials available through institutional consulting, Wells Fargo Investment Institute, as well as your local team. If we flip to slide 19, we'll review what would be our goals to have accomplished within the first 90 days after being awarded the contract. We would look to set up that rolling schedule of pension clinics. This would be to educate pension participants on financial subjects. The participants for this would be the union members, as well as your local consulting team, and any experts or specialists that we bring in on specific topics that would benefit the pension or union members. We would also look to set up the schedule of quarterly meetings for the contract terms so that you all know ahead of time when we're going to be meeting to review the managers and make sure that you are keeping up with your fiduciary duties. And lastly, we would look to schedule those monthly calls. This would not be between the entire pension board, but maybe some of the key personnel on the board getting some key reports and information from our senior client associates back in the office. How we plan to do some of this on slide number 20 is through some technology capabilities. Wells Fargo Advisors does produce a lot of reports and that are at our fingertips that help us select the managers. We went through a lot of that, analytical reports. What this helps us do is it helps us evaluate the key metrics that are most important to you all and the plan. So performance versus fees, and it helps increase positive outcomes for the plan by using these reports and the technology offered to us through Wells Fargo advisors. The second part of the technology capability is the Innovation Lab. And probably one of my favorite areas. It's what Wells Fargo uses to try to stay ahead of technology and in the forefront. What they're looking to do is create client-specific technology to help our customers and our clients achieve their financial goals. I got the pleasure of visiting this lab when I was in St. Louis one time, and they had a bunch of Alexas sitting on the counter, and so I had to ask what it was. And they shared with me that they're creating a system for people who are visually impaired to ask Alexa what their account balance is, and it uses voice recognition for security purposes to tell them what their account balances are. So they're constantly looking at better ways to service our clients. It also helps our team back in our local office better support you through streamlining operational services. So maybe not as important to you all, but to those folks who are retired and who are receiving checks from the pension, they're making sure that all of that is flowing seamlessly without error and everybody's getting their check in the mail as they should. And they also offer through this lab 24-hour access to the accounts. It's not something the pension board currently has, but as trustees on this board, you do have the ability to gain access via online access, which we have done with other plans that we have, so that everyone can review this. Oftentimes, it's not only the pension board that gain access, but attorneys, CPAs, your third-party administrator, or maybe even your trustee. So it gives the ability to have information at your fingertips 24 hours a day. So maybe you can worry in the middle of the night that your pension has too much Facebook in it and you saw on the news that it fell and you want to go look and see how much is there. You have the access to do so. But you also have us to call when the market or when the office opens. And the third piece of technology that I think would be very beneficial to JTA is our ability to help educate the union members. We have financial planning tools that can show them if this is what they anticipate from their pension and this is what they want to make in retirement, what are they going to do to fill that gap? When are they going to be able to retire? It offers us a lot of tools to help you all help those members ensure that not only the pension is going to provide them some retirement income, but they have resources to go to ensure that their retirement will be what they want. It also has the ability to send out market trend information. So if the union members decided that they wanted to sign up for email, and they could let us know what types of information they wanted to receive, we can set that up on a system that they get automated, either in the mail or through email, information on subjects that are very important to them. And helps with general planning tools as well. The next slide are reports, and once again, the three areas that we felt were most important to you all for reporting. The first is customizable account reports. So things that you are already used to seeing: account performance, risk analytics, asset allocation. This can also give you information about cash flow, managers versus their benchmark, and portfolio analysis tools. Other reports are industry reports. This is something that you haven't seen in the past but would be pertinent if you all became fiduciaries and selected the managers. Trends in the market, equity analysis, fixed income analysis. All of these reports are things that we use and would be available to you all in helping make the decision on managers selected. And lastly, subject-specific reports. Once again, this is key towards the union members. Reports on retirement saving, the 5 biggest steps to avoid when saving for retirement, or Social Security, how to ensure that you're getting the most from your Social Security benefit or Medicare benefit. These are all reports that we would be able to generate for you all to provide to your members in the union. Moving on to pricing. Probably should have been the first thing, because this is usually, when we talk with folks, one of the things that's on the forefront of their mind. Wells Fargo Advisors uses what's called basis points to price, and it's a flat percentage. So 48 basis points would be equivalent to 0.48%, so less than 0.5%. What this includes, I've listed this as well, but it includes all of the things we've discussed: your performance reporting, your analytical reporting, educational seminars, all of the information generated from Wells Fargo Investment Institute. It includes the cost of trades. It includes custodial services. It includes the cost of the managers. So this is an all-inclusive fee. No additional fees would be encompassed in the financial consulting or the custodian. I wanted to break that down a little bit for you all so you could understand a little better, and that's found on page 24. This is a hypothetical manager selection roster. That might be something that we would generate after going through the manager selection process. These are recommended managers from our global manager research team. On the far right column is the manager fee stated in basis points. So 30 basis points would be 0.3%. You can see at the bottom in the dark blue, the proposed blended management fee is 37 basis points. And how we come up with that blended management fee is, for example, the emerging market equity manager has a fee of 50 basis points. We should knock back. He's hanging something. The emerging market equity manager has a fee of 50 basis points, which means he charges 0.5%. If you look at the top line, the enhanced core bond with GW&K investments, they have a fee of only 30 basis points. The fixed income manager is going to manage around 12% of your portfolio, whereas the emerging market manager is only going to manage about 5%. So you have 5% at 50 basis points, 12% at only 30. So with the recommended allocation, your blended manager fee is 37 basis points. So your management fee all in, 37 basis points. The 11 basis points is your consultant fee. The consultant fee covers Wells Fargo Advisors fee, all of our custodial fees, our trading fees, all the services that we've discussed today that are included with Wells Fargo Advisors. We are a full service brokerage firm, therefore you wouldn't need any ancillary services from any additional firms with our financial consulting. And the last section that we're going to look at today is quality assurance and quality control. So we've talked about what we want to do for you and how the plan can benefit. Now we'll look at how we can ensure that we are providing the services that we have stated we would like to provide. In terms of making sure that we are providing our fiduciary roles as well as making sure you are maintaining your fiduciary roles, we have 2 levels of compliance and supervision. One is here locally. Joe Bruno manages that department with our local compliance specialist. They're looking at trading activity within the accounts. They're looking at our email communications. They're looking at how the account is stated that it wants to perform and how is it really performing. So they're making sure, numbers-wise, that we are achieving what the stated objective is for the accounts. Then, in addition to them, we have our regional compliance department. They're doing many of the same things, but oftentimes in a more in-depth measure. They even look at, if you send me an email, they're going to know everything you've sent. So they're making sure that we're remaining compliant and keeping your accounts both on the performance side, but also on the service side. Making sure we're keeping everything up to speed. Lastly is a quarterly performance report, and I think this is one of the most important. This is the report that is produced, we bring out to you all quarterly to review. It helps us make sure that not only is Wells Fargo doing everything properly, but are the managers keeping compliant and doing what they have promised to do in their investment objectives. We can look at the manager's performance versus their benchmarks and ensure that the quality assurance is happening for the plan, that you all are getting the services that you paid for. And slide 27, before I run out of time. Processes and procedure to assure quality control. The performance reports that are produced with help of our institutional consulting group are compliant with IMCA presentations. That's a standard set across the United States for pension boards. I also wanted to point out about the fiduciary responsibility. The recommendation I'm making today is a change from what you all have done previously. In that, you would be taking on some fiduciary responsibility in selecting the managers. In the past, that has been placed back on your financial consultant. We want to let you know that we are here to help you in that role, help educate you in that role, and that our contracts state that we will assist you and we take the obligation to protect you and protect our firm. So the compliance department looks in on that and makes sure that anything that we produce for you is compliant and that you all are making sure that you're reviewing asset allocation as required by law and all the other things that go into fiduciary responsibilities. And lastly, we provide benchmark services that will help make sure that the quality assurance is happening. With those benchmark services, it allows us to compare managers based on their benchmarks that are appropriate for each manager. So I thank you for your time today. Give 3 extra minutes for questions maybe.
Okay, do we have questions?
I have a question. What steps do you go through when you've identified that a money manager is not performing, and how long do you take before you take action on a manager?
Jeff?
So I think it's appropriate I take that question because it's our teams in St. Louis and the institutional team will have a hand in that. Typically, what we want to understand is the nature of the underperformance, firstly. Good managers do have seasons of outperformance. The benchmark oftentimes takes on risks to gain outperformance, which it certainly is going to give back in the event of a correction. So we try to understand what is the nature of that underperformance. It may just be that they're early in making assessments of stocks that they own. Once that's determined that it's a deficiency in the process, then the manager would be on watch. There are 3 stages of watch. Watches 1, 2, and 3. Stage 1 is going to mean we magnify the focus on those managers. Our analysts would be visiting those managers more often. They would be getting more data exchange back and forth, more communication. Watch 2, we actually do visits on not just, we reconcile the trading efficiency and other aspects of the manager's trading. Watch 3 is a mandatory sale. So when it reaches watch 3, we are issued an alert, and those alerts would prompt us to trade that manager and to do a search in which we would involve you in the selection of the next manager. Thanks.
I have a question. In the presentation on page 14, you talked about obtaining best trade execution. Explain how that works.
So trading execution, in the last 10 years, trading execution has predominantly computerized. Trading inefficiency, a lot of that, and particularly most asset classes, has been somewhat wrung out of the system. There was a time, 10, 15 years ago, when you could gain substantially better returns from trade execution, trading on your own independently. With our service, an important feature of our service is that we provide trade execution at no additional cost if the manager chooses to trade through Wells Fargo's desk. They, however, have an obligation, each manager has an obligation to pursue best execution. So if they determine through their understanding of how trades get executed that they can do better than Wells Fargo's desk, and they're held as fiduciaries accountable for that, then they would step out and go to another firm to trade those securities. If they do that, the plan would accrue an additional cost. As evidence that this industry has changed so much over the years, the instance where they step out and go outside of Wells Fargo, we trade as many stocks as any large firm on the street, is fairly rare. But they do it, and they do it because they're held to that accountability. They have to seek best execution.
I have a question. You mentioned a couple of times about if we, as a pension committee, take on fiduciary responsibility, it could save us money, and I guess my question is, what if that's not the direction we decide to go in, even though it's your recommendation? How does that change your proposal?
I think that the transparency there for you all would be most important. It may not necessarily directly reflect a lack of performance. It would just mean that there would likely be an increase in fees. And oftentimes it's misunderstood that an increase in fee means a reduction in performance, but that isn't always the case. So what the recommendation would be is to remain diversified, and we would show you the different platforms that are available to use discretionary trading.
So if we decided
Sorry.
to do what we're doing today with this plan,
Mhm.
okay, with Wells Fargo, and we decide not to take on that fiduciary responsibility, then the 48 basis points would be higher.
It would be changed, yes, ma'am.
Okay, do we know what that would be?
It would be your present fee.
It would be close to the present fee with some negotiation available.
Okay, what is
And that's
that?
at 60 basis points right now?
70,
75.
74, yeah, 75.
It would be no higher than that.
No higher than 75, but there would potentially be some room for negotiation in the contract down from 75.
So that was a similar question I had. The primary benefit to us becoming fiduciaries is to reduce the fee
Correct,
and, as you said, it increases transparency for us.
absolutely. It creates more involvement, some ownership, and we're here to support you in that.
Can I say a word if it's appropriate? Your fiduciary responsibility remains in all cases. You are the named fiduciary, so if you're not responsible for each individual decision, if you farm that out, you're still responsible for the decisions made of the co-fiduciary. What we're proposing in this proposal is that we make a recommendation, much like we would do as discretionary consultants. However, in this case, we have one last step. We need your okay on it. And you also have the option to refuse it. You could look at our recommendation and say, no, we'd prefer something else. But that's what creates this layer. It's an implementation layer. You're responsible regardless.
Yeah, question, how many, in your network of money managers, how many of those money managers are African-American companies?
I've done a search on minority managers, and I can't, Dwayne, I can't say specifically African-American, but I can say minority managers. In total, I believe there are 12 across various asset classes.
And
It
how
could be
many-
all women-owned firms. It could be of African-American. It's a subset of that number.
And how many of those minority firms that currently in the plan that we have right now?
There are none, and it's just a case where, at this juncture, the model that we're using under the discretionary model is governed by a St. Louis team, and it just so happened that team had no minority managers in their selection. If awarded this contract under a non-discretionary consulting, where you take on some fiduciary responsibility, the local team would have the latitude to consider other managers, some of which could be, in fact, minority managers. That's a feature, and it's a part of why we're making this presentation.
And to clarify Lisa's question a little, the role in selecting the manager, we as a consulting team would bring what we felt were the top 2, possibly 3 managers for each asset class to you. We would explain the pros and the cons of each of those managers, their historical performance, knowing that fees are for most investors are a big concern. We can look at, that'll be a big portion of the ability for Wells Fargo to negotiate fees. Being a large firm, dealing with a lot of managers, we have the ability on your behalf to go and negotiate fees, and oftentimes that may be what brings a manager to the forefront. The fees that I've listed on this manager roster, if you went and looked at their websites, it is much reduced from the stated fee because they are negotiated fees through Wells Fargo advisors. So we would bring those managers to you and then make a final recommendation on our number 1 choice and number 2 choice. We just need the yes from you to make that choice. So the difference from what we're currently doing is we would make those changes and then come and explain to you what we had done. Going forward, we would bring those changes to you and you would have to say yes, move forward.
That begs another question, if I may. In the example that you gave us to get to the 48 basis point, and your proposal's a flat 48 basis point, I know the management fees are blended depending on what those managers charge. But what if what was selected are equate to higher than 37 basis points?
we would look to propose managers that would fit within that criteria. Wells Fargo has contracts with a large number of managers, and so we would look to do that. And if we decided that we wanted a manager maybe in the large cap sector that was higher, then we may have to find a manager in another sector that might have a lower fee.
Or it would be something we would bring to your attention and just suggest to you that, hey, we really think that this manager is going to be a better manager for you all over. It's going to add, at the end of the day, another 2 basis points. So instead of 48, it'll be 50, but it's your choice to work with us in selecting that manager.
The 11 basis point consultant fee would never change, but if you all found a manager that you decided would perform better, that might be slightly higher, that could possibly increase the fee to the plan.
I have one last question as well. Does your firm provide transition management services? And if so, are those fees inclusive in transitioning assets?
Well, that's one of the benefits of being with us as a custodian. The transition of the assets would be cost-free because we absorb trades with our service. So that, in fact, would be a feature that no other firm would have that we can provide you. Because we own the assets, it's a transfer, those fees for trades are absorbed.
Just so I understand your question. So that just means changing managers?
That's right.
Okay.
The last,
Oftentimes there is a fee built into that change, right?
Correct. You have to transfer assets and those fees.
Right.
occur.
Okay.
there was a request for an absolute fee, I think, in some of the discussions previously. The 11 basis points, we would guarantee, if you were to take 11 basis points and multiply that by the outstanding balance today, we would guarantee that for a period of 3 years. The actual fixed dollars, if that brings some comfort. But the managers, of course, we have no control. Well, we have as much negotiating we can do.
Any other questions? Anyone? Okay. Thank you for your time.
Good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.